The WNBA and its players union may be closer to a deal than we think.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball, your number one daily sports podcast. Alongside me is Sophia Jones, the Golden State Valkyries analyst. I'm Clea Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky. And we spoke a little bit prior about CBA negotiations, all that stuff. Obviously, an agreement hasn't been come to yet. However, what we are seeing is that the WNBA has released the schedules for this upcoming season, which came at a little bit of a surprise to all of us because we were like, well, there's no agreement here just yet to our knowledge. But that gives us hope that they may be closer than we think. But given this news, the WNBA has officially unveiled the 2026 regular season schedule ahead of its 30th anniversary season. And it's set to begin Friday, May 8th, and will run through September 24th with playoffs starting immediately afterwards. The tip-off weekend is going to be that May 8th through the 10th, and that's going to showcase all 15 teams playing across multiple nights, all that good fun stuff. The expansion teams, Toronto Temple, will play its first ever at-home game on May 8th against the Mystics, and the Portland Fire will return to the league for its first time in 2026, with their game being May 9th against the Chicago Sky. I'm personally very excited for that one. Sophia, as somebody who has been part of a new expansion team, how exciting is it to see some of these, teams get on the schedule early and be able to showcase what they got?
I think it's so important for them to get on the schedule early and for those games to be at home. From experience, the very first Golden State Valkyries regular season game at home against the Los Angeles Sparks, they lost that game, but everyone remained on their feet after the final buzzer rang, just giving a standing ovation for a good 5 minutes after, because everyone understands the gravity of the moment. It's going to be such a great environment, and I can imagine that it's going to be really special in Portland and Toronto.
I love that you mentioned that too, and I think we will see that in Portland and Toronto, especially in Toronto, kind of, being able to have their WNBA team make that debut, Portland coming back. But I like that you said that, the gravity of the moment, because every time I watch a Valkyries game, I have never seen fans so invested in the game where they're literally almost swaying calls at that point because they're booing the refs. No matter what the score is, they are cheering. Like, it's the fact that you could hear all of that stuff through the broadcast, which makes me even more excited about these expansion teams, because Golden State cave in and really kind of set the tone of what the next couple of years are going to look like through, this 2028 season when more teams keep getting added. So this is going to be really fun. I'm very excited to see, especially the Toronto one starting for them at home.
Definitely. Like you said, even you talk about the crowd environment. It took Tammy Fagbenle on the Valkyries up until one of the very last home regular season games to tell the fans that she actually needs them to be a little bit negative sometimes, because everyone is in a fantastic mood whenever they entered Valhalla, which is, of course, the nickname for the Valkyries arena at Chase Center. But I think I can't imagine any other environment being anything different than what the Valkyries set as a precedent for expansion teams in these next couple of clubs that are joining the league soon.
Some high-profile games and some sort of rivalries that we will see that stand out from the schedule. The Vases, I put that name together. The Las Vegas Aces and the Phoenix Mercury will have a rematch of the 2025 WNBA Finals. They're scheduled to meet multiple times this season, but also including a season opener for the defending champs. And then Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark, two standouts in the league, if you will. They are going to have a matchup on May 9th. So kind of a battle of the two young stars right now. And an anniversary game on June 21st, Sparks hosts the Liberty in a rematch of the WNBA's first ever game from 1997, because this is a historic year in the WNBA.
Exactly. There's a lot of newness. And I think that's another reason why the league just decided to release the schedule. They actually put out, a WNBA spokesperson put out a statement saying that it's a key step as they prepare for the season, allowing broadcasters and fans to begin essential planning for the year ahead. So that makes sense, even when you consider fans getting tickets, maybe booking flights to go to a couple of games, venues being booked, hotels, flights. There are a lot of things and nuances to be considered in releasing the schedule. So I can see why the league just wanted to allow people to get a little bit of their bearings together.
When you're also considering travel, everybody should come to the great city of Chicago, because that is where the All-Star game will be hosted. It's starting on July 25th with games resuming a couple of days later. I was fortunate enough to go to the one last year in Indianapolis, and that is a great city, don't get me wrong, but knowing the access that there is in Chicago, and I was already having a fantastic time, and we saw by the Twitch stream, thank you to the Stud Buds, that all the players were having a great time too. So knowing that that's essentially just going to be elevated in a larger major city, everybody should be booking their flights as soon as possible, because this is going to be a fun one.
Definitely. I mean, I just with all them releasing the schedule has me excited. I think things are looking a little bit bleak for a while because the season and the CBA is so up in the air. But at least having something in front of us now is offering a little bit of comfort. Some other key dates being training camp starting April 19th. And I'm interested because within this schedule, it looks like there are influences that the players most likely requested and asked for. So, for example, the league was trying to push mid-March training camp. Doesn't look like they were successful with that, as it's going to start on April 19th. Another thing that stood out to me is all but 2 teams have at least one back-to-back set of games, but the average of games on consecutive nights is down from 2.4 per team last year to 1.6 this season. So they're trying to give these players a little bit more rest. Teams will play 44 games over a 5-month period with a 17-day break for the FIBA World Cup in early September. So that's another thing. It looks like they are trying to stretch the season out more so on the back end going into October.
Absolutely. But we also have to think about what impact this does have on the CBA. Again, kind of came as a surprise for the schedule to be released. Obviously, you texted me yesterday and were like, I think this means good news. And then I went on Instagram and it's everywhere. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess the schedule's released now. Does this give hope, but also kind of send a certain sense of confusion to people, where even when we're seeing some of these debut games for the 2 new expansion teams, they still don't even know what their rosters are going to look like because they haven't had an expansion draft. So it gives a little hope, but also does it give kind of rush players in the league to put things together maybe too quickly?
I think with the negotiations currently being in this status quo period, the CBA is officially expired. There's no more extension. Before they enter any kind of lockout or work stoppage, I think that releasing this shows a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. Breanna Stewart said that she feels like she can kind of see that same light. She says she's just starting to see it. So that is someone that is a part of the WNBA Players Association on their board. So she has a say in a lot of these negotiations. But kind of similar to what I was saying in the overall excitement that the schedule release brings, I think that both parties understand that a season does need to happen this year. That is what I've been hearing from my people around the league as well. But it's just a matter of getting this CBA done. But like you mentioned, now the clock is ticking a little bit, because I was looking at the schedule and I was trying to see, oh, maybe this game will be good. Maybe this game will be good. However, free agency could change the entire landscape of the league. So it's kind of a little difficult to tell which games actually might be good and competitive right now.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this league so exciting, but also an understanding that you can't miss out on this moment. But coming up after this, Iowa State is finally back in the winning column and some other Big 10, Big 12 games that happened last night. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. Lucky for me, I've received my taxes in the mail today, so this is all coming at a wonderful time. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to ad-free audio feed for Locked On Women's Basketball, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. Go to lockedonwomensbasketball.supercast.com or tap on the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. Iowa State has returned back to the win column after going on a 5-game losing streak with a 93-68 win over Cincinnati, a team that had beat them prior. But this is their first win within 2026, and it was led by a record-breaking performance by none other than Jada Williams. She had an all-time high 44 points, the first game of her career over 30. And it goes down as the highest by a Cyclone in a conference game, and now the second highest total in Iowa State history, just behind Audie Crooks, who set that record at 47 points this season.
Yeah, I think we said on the last podcast, if Iowa State didn't win this game, then their season might be in serious jeopardy. I think that the players understood the gravity of that specific matchup and that they needed to win. And for Jada Williams to really take the reins and impose her will in that game, I think was really huge for her. I mean, having the career high scoring night, Audie Crooks had 24 points as well. So she got back above 20 points per game, which is her standard. It's a very high standard, but she set it for herself. But no, it was really important for Iowa State to get that win in dominant fashion as well. And Ariana Jackson returned that game as well, which I think really helped Iowa State out. She added 11 points, 8 rebounds. She just helps mostly to space the floor. She is over 40% three-point shooter. So she draws the defenses out, keeps them honest, allows a guard like Jada Williams to attack and create, but also a player like Audie Crooks to not have that double sent down because there's a shooter.
Yeah, Audie Crooks kept her double-figure scoring alive, as you mentioned, but she kept her double-double streak alive at 86 games, or double-figure scoring, at 86 games, and brought in her 15th 20-plus point game this season. And Ariana Jackson helped in as well with her third 10-plus, totaling 11. We had kind of mentioned her assistance as well. But this is kind of looking back to be an Iowa State team that we felt confident in at the beginning of the season, that had that 14-game winning streak. Obviously, a win against Cincinnati might not be too prominent at this moment, but as you mentioned, when we're thinking of playoff berth and what's going to look like going into March Madness, this was definitely an important one.
Definitely. And sometimes you really just need that one win to break out of a little bit of a rut, especially how dominant Iowa State was before that losing streak that they had. I still think adding or getting back Addie Brown will be the final piece for them to return to that dominance. However, getting Ariana Jackson back, if you continue to have Jada Williams, probably won't put up 40 pieces for the rest of the season, but if you continue to have her take a lot of the scoring burden, it helps out Audie Crooks more. It just allows her to do what she needs to. And I think Iowa State, maybe not the same level that they were before, but at least get themselves back into Big Ten championship conversations.
Looking at the Big Ten, number 3, UCLA defeated Purdue 96-48. All Bruin starters scored in double figures. Gabriella Jaquez led the way with 25 points. Lauren Betts had 16. Kiki Rice had 15. Clarice Ledger-Walker, 15. And Gianna Neepkins had 14 points. So a little bit of a walk in the park for UCLA, who we have said is a very difficult team to get by in the Big Ten right now. But Gabriella Jaquez is somebody who I really want to point out in this game because she was sidelined kind of early on after getting into some foul trouble. But in the second half, she added 23 points to the 25 total that she had. She had 4 rebounds, 2 assists. She was 9 of 10 from the floor in the final 20 minutes of the game and came out as the leading scorer of the game. So you couldn't sit her out for too long. She was going to come back and show exactly why she needed to stay on the court, foul trouble and all.
Exactly. And Jaquez is more so known as a glue player. She'll do all the dirty work, and she's just so well-rounded that when she does need a score, like in game scenarios like last game, even the game before, I'm pretty sure she put up pretty solid numbers. She can really play make and score the ball at an extremely high rate. I mean, 25 points, she was efficient, just proving why UCLA is so deep, and they just look so dominant within the Big Ten.
UCLA will go on to play Northwestern on Sunday. So honestly, I should go look at going to that game. Truthfully, I get the pleasure of seeing Big Ten play right in my backyard. Evanston's not too far from me. Another Big Ten game, and we called this one. I said that Wisconsin had the opportunity to upset Nebraska here, and they did. A 63-60 win over the 24th ranked Nebraska. This is big for Wisconsin because this is now their second victory against a ranked opponent in this year. They came off a big double overtime win against Oregon. But in this game, it was Gift Uchenna, who has the coolest name ever. But she led the way for the Badgers with her third double-double of the season. She had a season-high 22 points and 14 rebounds, 10 of 17 from the field.
Yeah, she was incredible. And you called it Wisconsin. They are not a team to be overlooked. Nebraska had the ranking advantage over them. But I mentioned last podcast as well, Nebraska has struggled to close out some of these games, specifically from an offensive standpoint. And Wisconsin, after just coming off of those overtime wins, they know how to operate and execute in the clutch. And they took exactly that same recipe and repeated it.
The Badgers shot 45% from the field, 33% from 3, 77% from the free throw line, but they held Nebraska to 37% from the field, 23% from 3, and they were missing some free throws. They were 61% from the free throw line, but that's another part when you're talking about closing out games. I feel like teams defensively have been able to hold Nebraska to a lower field percentage than they are typically comfortable with.
Exactly. The majority of Nebraska's offensive playmaking is by Britt Prince, but she only finished with 11 points. She was 5 of 13, so a little bit inefficient. Got some contributions from Eliza Malpin, and off the bench, 15 points from Amaya Hargrove. But when Britt Prince isn't clicking, I've definitely noticed that Nebraska's offense really stagnates.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one just to make note of, Texas Tech, who started the season undefeated as well, ranked 19th, have now dropped their second conference game and their second loss of the season. They lost to BYU 73-61, which was a signature upset for BYU. And we're talking about some of these under the radar teams that you have to watch out for. BYU is definitely in those conversations.
Exactly. They were extremely dominant. I feel like not too long ago, they were consistently a ranked team. When they were in the West Coast Conference, they were winning that conference, or I think they got upset a couple years, but they were always considered the front runners in the WCC. And in this transition now to the Big 12, there is a very real possibility that they could return to that same form. But they're definitely a respected program nationwide. And I think getting this win over Texas Tech, who, like you said, is just coming off of their first loss of the season, who you expected for them to have a major bounce back game, for BYU to get that win was huge.
Yeah, coming up after this, we're going to get into some SEC talks and some other teams. There's some good basketball being played yet again today.
New year, new systems. This is a time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the easiest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. I know for us in the Locked On family, there are a ton of podcasts. There's a lot of people to be communicating with, and Quo really helps to make everything streamlined and find who you need to contact easily. So make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers.
All right, SEC play back in action today. South Carolina, who's currently ranked second, is going to face Oklahoma, who is sitting in that 16th spot. South Carolina looking incredibly dominant right now, especially when we're considering that win over Texas. I think they have all the confidence in the world at the moment. I know they're not going to let that get too ahead of themselves, but I think Texas was a good way to avenge the only loss that they had this season. And they're looking to get back to their typical South Carolina ways. They're playing through their bigs more. Their defense is looking to come together even more than it did at the beginning of the season. Offensively, we know how much of a threat that they can be. But on the other side, Oklahoma has a very strong defense that they have to go up against.
Definitely. This could be a game that slows down a little bit in terms of offensive prowess and scoring. Both teams, I think, really generate their offense from their defense. They like to speed up their opponent and then score in the other direction. But like you mentioned, for South Carolina, they are really firing on all cylinders right now, with Vanderbilt pretty close on their heels right now in the SEC. Or I think Vanderbilt actually has the number one seed in the SEC right now because of their overall record as an undefeated squad. But South Carolina, that number one spot is usually theirs, and I think that they need to continue playing like that. And against Oklahoma is another great opportunity.
I think some keys to today's game that are going to play some major factors is obviously the defense on both sides for both of these teams. Obviously, Oklahoma coming in as a strong defensive team, but so is South Carolina. You're also going to want to have to control the paint early, which is something South Carolina obviously does a very good job at in dominating, but also just reducing the turnovers. I think Oklahoma has struggled with that in some of their games. South Carolina also just struggling with that against Texas. There was a lot of turnovers from both of those teams. So yeah, very curious to see what it's going to look like in terms of who's going to slow down the game and force the other team to kind of play a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah, even last game for Oklahoma, you look at inside presence. Reagan Beers was in foul trouble. That is an easy thing that South Carolina can exploit, but turnovers, high tempo, definitely things we can expect in the city of Norman's game tonight.
Another another one, number 10 Iowa is going up against number 15 Maryland, a fun Big 10 game. And Maryland has had a little bit of a struggle as of late. They've gotten blown out. They're playing in Maryland, which should give them a little bit of a boost in College Park, hopefully. But Iowa State, we mentioned it yesterday on the podcast, they are back in the top 10 since the Caitlin Clark era. And I think they have a really healthy balance in terms of you have Ava Hayden, you have Hannah Stolke, but we can't forget about Chit Chat Wright as well, who has been a huge contributor offensively. Maryland going to just have to find a good response for honestly containing all of them.
Yeah, I think for Maryland also, one of the things that they can do is try to speed Iowa up. Iowa is more of a team that likes to execute and run through their half-court offensive sets. They like to use their front court players a lot, get them on the post up. So Maryland needs to be very physical and, like I said, try to speed them up, especially their leading scorer right now, Oluchi Okanakwa. She is someone that likes to play fast. She can really spin. I think that she will be a very valuable piece for Maryland to get going.
Our last one in SEC play again, number 11 Kentucky going up against number 17 Tennessee. Kentucky having a little bit of an up and down as well. Tennessee being pretty consistent, but I think this is a game that Kentucky can walk away with. Tennessee is, however, on a 6-game winning streak, but I think I look back to Kentucky's game against LSU where I felt like they were truly playing their best. I think they have multiple players that can contribute on any given night. So if they're really clicking on all cylinders today, they can walk away with a win against Tennessee.
Definitely. I am curious about the status of Tiani Key because Kentucky is coming off that loss against Mississippi State. She is a huge element in their front court, takes a little bit of the pressure off of Clara Strack. But this game is going to be really focused on how well their point guard, Tony Morgan, can handle the ball against the pressure that Tennessee is bound to throw against her full court. So she is going to have to control the pace for Kentucky's offense, which at times has proven to plateau a little bit. We'll see if Tennessee takes advantage of that or if Kentucky can throw some defense back at them.
Yeah, that one is set to tip at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time today. Honestly, all the games are back to back. Iowa and Maryland is at 6 p.m. Eastern, and starting things off will be South Carolina and Oklahoma. So make sure you are tuned in. But that'll do it for us today on Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you guys so much for making us your number